Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. Here at Healthy Perspectives, we appreciate you join us. So we try to make sure that we use your time wisely, and we typically get right after things. So today it's not going to be much different, if any, but the topic is significantly different. Today, your tip of the day is you are rarely the actual victim. Rarely. I have become more and more convinced through my clinical experience that one of the most dangerous things to us individually and collectively, both, is the idea of being a victim. And so I'm going to start you off with some data. So for those of you who don't like data, sorry, just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to give you some basic data to work from. Now, you know, if you've been here with me much, you know that I use data conservatively, meaning you're going to see that I take a lot off the data in order to give us the advantage of seeing just how, in the worst case scenarios, how off our thinking might be. Because if it's this bold when it's not the worst case, then we're going to know. So for instance, we know that if you live 80 years, you have lived 29,200 days. That's a lot of days. Okay, I'm doing that conversion on purpose. Most of us won't actually live 80 years. A good number of us will. Most of us will exceed 60 years, though. The vast majority of you out there will live beyond 60 years. Now, I know, I'm not dumb. I know that there are people who can pass away when they're 7 years old. These are sad stories. It's true. And they have very limited numbers of days. And so, but that is also a rarity. It's not common. It's rare. So if we go with 60 years, you would have 23,795 days of life at 60 years. But to be conservative, I want to take off sleep, because you're alive, but you're not, most people are not super effective in their sleep. Now, some people dream and they have realizations and clarifications that come from dreams, and they're very powerful within their life. That's also true. But let's take the sleep time off. That gives you 21,900 days. Now, that's a good number to start from because it's very conservative. That's with 8 hours typically of sleep. Now, some of you are like, but I sleep 10 hours. Okay, well, you're going to have to adjust the data a little bit. What does that mean? That means if you lived 3 full years of life being absolutely miserable because you're a victim, 3 years, day and night, awake and asleep, you are the victim. That would be 1,095 days, or 5% of your life. Why am I saying this? Because many who struggle with, say, depression can struggle with depression for a couple of years. It's very unusual for somebody to go multiple years, like 4 or 5 years, but it does happen. It's just very unusual. And that's one of the more long-term challenges we would encounter. Trauma, or being a victim, is typically a moment in time. Okay. Now, I painted all of that because I want you to understand something. If 95% of your life was good and 5% was bad, we should Psychologically speaking, we should think that we had a pretty decent life, right? I mean, the good far outweighed the bad. But why is it important? Why am I saying you are rarely an actual victim? Here's why. Because one of the worst disorders I think there is in America isn't even in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. It's not even in there. It is the self-torture of victimhood. For instance, if you, I'm going to go to more extreme cases. So for those of you who have got sensitive people around you, kids, stuff like that, please like pay attention and filter it if you need to. Okay. The most victimizing moments that often are encountered. You're at a place where there is a mass shooting. I could say that would be a victimizing location. You're raped. You're there to witness a murder. You're mugged, maybe. You're assaulted. You're burglarized. These are all actual victim moments. And they last most of the time, minutes, not even hours. Earthquakes, tsunamis. You're talking, I mean, maybe hours, but not days. There might be days of cleanup and repair, maybe even a year or two. And why am I painting it this way? Because you are rarely an actual victim. And how you approach things makes all kinds of difference, psychologically speaking. If you, after an incident like I just described, decide that the world is out to get me, and you start to view the world from the oppressor, oppressed, us, them, victim, persecutor mentality. If you take on that stance of I'm oppressed, I'm the victim, it's us against them, you fall into what I believe is one of the worst disorders probably in America. You now can live much of your life falsely believing that you are a victim when you are not an actual victim. And all of a sudden, those data points start to shift. And even though in all reality, maybe it's for most of you, probably less than 3% of your life, probably for a good chunk of you, less than 1% of your life would be you actually being a victim and in direct repair of being a victim. And then we ruminate. We sit there and we think, I'm the victim. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was mugged. I was burglarized. I witnessed this horrible thing that lasted a minute or two, oftentimes. And we ruminate in it, giving up our present moments to our victim mentality. Folks, the reason I'm putting this out here today is because I want to give you big picture. Big picture. Most of you will be a victim at some point. But if you adopt that as your mentality, you're a fool. I'm not saying that to be insensitive to people. I see people every day who have been victims, and I work with them through getting out of that victim mentality. And it's not easy. And if it takes 3 years to get out of it, conservatively speaking, that's still less than 5% of your life. You can still have an amazing life. Amazing. And the faster you get out of that mentality, the better. Frankly, that's good. That's a good thing. If you can get out of it in a few days or a couple of weeks, now that's not always the easiest thing to do, because it's oftentimes more comfortable because we believe we're keeping ourselves safe. That's the lie we tell ourselves. I'm going to keep myself safe, to ruminate in the unsafe situation to make sure it never happens again. And that rumination, that point at which we are just going with, this is what happened, I can't let that happen again. This is what happened, I can't let that happen again. This is what, that's ruminating. That is, I am staying fixated on what was instead of moving to what is or what could be. And I think that's one of the worst disorders in America. Play it out big picture. If one person does that, it's not a big deal. I mean, it is to that person, but it's not to the culture. If 10 people do it, we could have a pity party. Oh, life is out to get us. This really sucks. If a couple thousand people do it, we could have protests and riots go bad, really bad. Just a couple thousand. If half of us do this, then we end up in this perpetual cycle of us, them, oppressor, oppressed, all about power. If I refuse to be the victim, so I'm going to become what? The persecutor, the oppressor, the one who says, I have the power over you. And we end up with this flip flop, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, power. It's a dumb game to play, folks. It's a really dumb game to play because there is no actual winner. The winner will happen when we understand we are in this together. It's a unifying message to say, yes, when somebody is victimized, we will take the persecutor out of the population if possible. Now, it doesn't mean we go and kill them. It means that's what jails are for. The biggest challenge I see here, though, if I'm being really transparent, which I typically do, is who doesn't ever get arrested and put in jail? Or at least not often. It's the wealthy persecutors. It's the people who victimize other people and nobody even knows that it's happening. When the evil can hide in plain sight because they hide behind a wall of money or politics, that's a problem. That's a really big problem. And if we run around arresting all the politicians, then what? We've just created an us-them mentality that we are the victims. So we have to come up with an alternative. And I don't claim to actually know all the right answers in this particular portion. What I can tell you is if somebody, the idea here is the law is supposed to be the great balancer. That's what's supposed to happen in the United States. And does it always work that way? Not always, because the rich have money to pay for the best lawyers who find these little crevices that they can hide in like cockroaches. And so they end up paying fines or something, but not end up going out of circulation in terms of their influence. And why does that matter? Because that means that they eventually come crawling out of their crevice and they go again. So, like some people might argue that this is a great example of why we need term limits and maximum, time span in the political arena, so that you have only a certain limitation. You get 12 years. Do what you can in 12 years. Beyond that, get out. Just get out. Something like that. By the time you've figured out how to steal everybody's money, you're like, now that I know, I got to go. That sucks. And so, we would have this perpetual teaching of people how to, but the interesting thing there is it only takes one good person to be like, no, dude, shut up. Like, not doing that. Not only that, but I'm going to tell everybody that you're suggesting I do that. It only takes one person to do that. And since they are in a different position, a position of more political power, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I really want to do that anymore, kind of a thing. It would be a way of backing some of that off. I don't know what else it would create, because frankly, that's not the system we have. You can go and, push your politicians to do just about anything if you got enough money, apparently. At the end of the day, folks, you are rarely a victim. If you found yourself in a place where you have been a victim, understand it's a snippet. It is not a defining trait, a defining characteristic of your life. How you use it to benefit yourself or the world around you is going to be more defining than the moment itself. I'm going to leave you with this story. This is a story that I often will tell people that I work with. When I was growing up, we had, people come to our schools. I was a kid in the 80s. So we were in the 90s, the early 90s. And so we had Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And the story that we were told was this mother who lost a child to a drunk driver decided they were not going to let their kid's life be gone for nothing. And so they took it upon themselves to say, I'm going to go out there and see if I can gather other moms who have experienced this same loss. And I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to find out what they think we can do about this. And I'm going to share with them my experience and say, what do you think we can do with this? And to my knowledge, at this point in 2025, it is still the most influential movement in terms of alcohol consumption before driving and reducing deaths by drunk drivers that we have ever seen in this country. These moms changed the world. And I would suggest for the better, because they said, we are not going to adopt the victim mentality. We are not going to say there are oppressed and oppressors. What we are going to do at the psychological level is say, I am not going to stay in this state. And they started asking questions. How do I change this world for the better, in spite of the moment I was victimized by this world? And then they did. That's the flip side of this, folks. It may be the worst, potentially the worst disorder that's not even in the DSM in America. But it also if you refuse to adopt the victim mentality, the oppressor oppressed, can be one of those moments that unites us and creates an opportunity for us to do something amazing. I've been very fortunate, very blessed. I've seen this happen. I watched a young lady who was one of the most bullied and became a bully, and then went on to create one of the biggest anti-bullying campaigns. I've seen this happen. Folks, you are that person. If you can get out of your own way and stop assuming that because you were a victim, that you are a victim, and move into the, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to make this moment, this time period, this difficulty into something beneficial for the people around me, for my friends and family, for my community? And when you do that, folks, it flips that coin. The thing that's one of the worst disorders in America becomes one of the best things about being an American. You would be willing to potentially, as we have in the past, fight and die to eradicate things like racism, slavery, persecution in all kinds of different forms. And we right now are probably on the precipice of a time where we can do that. We could do that right now. Stop with all these, in my opinion, from the clinical, social, cultural, political perspective. Stop doing all the dangerous riot-like protests and say, how do we unite in a way to benefit rather than to destroy? Because it's not us against them. It's not Democrats against Republicans or Republicans against Democrats. It's citizens fighting for a good country, a country where we can be proud of our friends and our neighbors. I know this sounds like a bunch of optimism throwing at you today. Like, I know I'm throwing a lot, but that mentality shift is the first step. I may have been the victim, but I am not the victim. Not anymore. My family may have been a victim. I asked somebody the other day, side note, but I'm going to do this for a moment. I asked somebody the other day, how do you know you are a victim, or if I am a victim? And they went silent. They stopped responding to me. This happened on social media. This happened on social media, real time, like just 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago. They went silent because they realized there was no way, I think, most likely, they realized there was no way to know if I was a victim or not. And I'm not going to project as a victim, not today, not ever. Have I been a victim? Absolutely. Have you been a victim? Probably. Probably. But you don't have to stay there. That can become a moment in time. That can become a 5% or less. For most of you, probably significantly less than 5% of your story. What are you going to do with the other 95%? Are you going to unify and unite people? Or are you going to hide in that 5%, ruminate in it, and create all that negativity in you and the world around you? You got a choice to make, folks. I hope this was helpful. Please like, subscribe, do all those things. Share it with friends. That's probably the most important thing. Let people know that we're out here trying to help, trying to make a difference. And remember, you are rarely the actual victim. I'm not taking away those moments where you were, and those are a rarity. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.